nearly 22,000 people evacuated from Kabul in the last 24 hours.
Yep.
It's almost like he's having a spectacularly successful run, which you wouldn't know from the media, would you?
No.
Okay. All right. I got all the Eagle Scout jokes out of my system.
Yes, you did.
So that I can show the proper respect to Representative Brendan Boyle. Good morning, sir.
You've so mocked me and shamed me, I just can't do the Zoom anymore. I'm not just dialing in.
Are you calling on your sneaker phone? Just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sure you have an adult phone. Listen, Representative.
He has a family.
Representative, a lot going on. I have to say, I've been railing about, because I know you work a lot with the military, and it's just this media coverage, that have caused this, I guess, hit to President's approval rating. I mean, these numbers of this evacuation, this will be the most successful evacuation in history. Obviously, the more we're learning about the deal that the Trump administration left us, we're talking to Olivia Troy later on in the show. It's just sort of astounding, I think, what the president has accomplished, don't you?
So first, obviously, express my heartfelt empathy for people of Afghanistan, especially the women and girls, what they're facing and about to face with the Taliban takeover. However, I think people who are overly critical of this administration need to take a step back and recognize we have been there for 20 years, the longest engagement in American history. And quite frankly, if we were to stay another 10 years, let's say we stayed another 10 years, I firmly believe that 10 years and 1 day from now, we would be seeing then exactly what we've witnessed over the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
We achieved, and it's unfortunate in the very beginning, if we were to go back 2 decades, that the mission hadn't been more limited. It should have been to immediately take out al-Qaeda, which we achieved, and to ultimately either capture or kill Osama bin Laden, which we were able to achieve.
Yeah.
Once both of those objectives had been achieved, then the transition should have been put in place. But frankly, I think a number of administrations knew that just once we pulled out, it would be messy, it would be ugly.
Yeah.
And so it just became too easy for them to go on autopilot instead of dealing with what actually the Biden administration is dealing with now.
President Biden deserves a lot of credit for that, doesn't he? For the leadership and the courage to be the one that did it, that got us out of this.
I think, purely politically speaking, it would have been just easier to keep doing what
status quo.
The last several administrations have done and pass the buck. And he wasn't willing to do that. He might be paying a short-term political price for that. But ultimately, I do believe it is the right decision.
Right, but that's what leadership is. That's what he keeps saying. I know that I stand by that I made the right decision here, and and even the coverage has just been hysterical. When you're looking at these numbers, Representative, is this the latest? Nearly 22,000 people evacuated just in the past 24 hours. I mean,
I saw that. I've been, for a lot of us in the House were here well past midnight last night, and then was up very early, just a few hours later, doing some other media. So I've been so wrapped up in kind of the infrastructure negotiations here that haven't had a chance over the last 24 hours to follow as closely as I was.
Right.
I will be in about 45 minutes. I'll be going into a classified briefing with the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and others. But from what I've seen publicly reported about the evacuations the last 24 hours, that is a pretty dramatic improvement.
Yeah. Well, first of all, name dropper. Secondly, Representative. But, it just also, when you learn about the mean-spiritedness of this Trump administration, it's starting from the Muslim ban and through what Olivia Troy is going to talk to us about in a little bit, about how this was deliberate, them making sure, the Afghan translators and people had as difficult a time getting here as we could. But can I just tell you one positive thing because I'm dying to talk to you about infrastructure, but this is from the Washington Post. Afghans arrive in Virginia greeted by an outpouring of support. They kept coming, people carrying bags of clothes, toiletries, diapers, baby formulas, toys, books. By noon, the piles of donations had grown so high, volunteers had to turn some away. That's the America you and I know. right? I think 80% of Americans think we should welcome Afghans here.
Very inspiring to see, and frankly, seeing those poll numbers as high as they've been on accepting and admitting the Afghans who fought shoulder to shoulder with us and welcoming them here. It has. I've had the same reaction that you've had, and that really represents the best of America.
Yep, absolutely. And I loved your tweet. You just said, yes, kids, after 20 years of being in Afghanistan, if we've only stayed one more month, there would have been peace. Sure. So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
but,
and I was I tweeted that I was, as you know, my sense of humor, whether one thinks it's good or bad or somewhere in between, does perhaps come out in my tweets. I was being sarcastic there because I was replying to or tweeting an article in a major publication that was claiming if we had stayed one more month, that the outcome would have been different.
Right.
And I just think that is
not
unbelievably wishful thinking.
Thank you. And not when Donald Trump sold out the country to the Taliban, period. He cut the Afghan government out of the negotiations. How we could have seen anything else coming, I don't know. But let's talk about infrastructure. I have said on this show that I feel like the sentence fill in the blank threatens Pelosi never really ends well for whoever's in the fill in the blank. But, and you actually tweeted about, you said, this is only the second time in my lifetime we've had an opportunity to go big for the American people. We must seize it. The reconciliation bill includes universal pre-K, paid family leave, child care, free community college, making the child tax credit permanent, and more. So we have a standoff, right, with this moderate caucus saying they want to do the infrastructure deal now. Obviously, Pelosi and the progressives saying they want both at the same time, right? The infrastructure and the reconciliation bill. Where are we this morning, Representative?
Yeah. So first, per my tweet, literally, if you go over the course of the last 50 years, there's only been one other opportunity like this, and frankly, that window was not open very, very much or very long, and it was that 2009 to 2010 period. Beyond that, you have to go. We've basically been living in the Reagan era when it comes to the view of government and what it can do. You have to go back to the 1960s before we're talking about doing some very big, important, transformative things for helping the middle class and working people and the poor. And my view is this window will not last, will not remain open forever, and we have to take full advantage of it. So the kind of things that we're talking about, universal pre-K, paid family leave, which would enable us to join the rest of the civilized world that has had paid family leave for a long time, national support for child care, free community college, making the child tax credit permanent. These go to the very heart of why I chose to be a Democrat in the first place.
Yeah. Well, you...
so sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you said on Twitter, I feel so strongly about this, I cannot in good conscience support the Senate infrastructure bill if the House fails to vote on the reconciliation bill. We must seize this moment. Mm-hmm. So we know where you stand. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so toward the second part of your question then about what will happen next, it was announced just a little while ago in caucus. We do believe that we have an internal agreement that we will be able to vote on this rule that will include all of the great provisions that I just talked about that are in the Build Back Better Act, that we will give some certainty in terms of a date on when we will vote on the other package, which is obviously the bipartisan Senate infrastructure bill. And that, I think, will actually get us to the magic number that we need, and we'll be able to pass this. This isn't the end of the process, but it's an important part, and then I think we'll wrap everything up by September 30th.
Oh, your mouth to God's ears. All right. Well, and as you know, I am so with you because I feel like nothing matters if we don't. That's why I have my Rise Up and Vote shirt on in honor of you today, because you are an original, proud co-sponsor of the John Lewis Voting Rights Amendment, and I got to tell you, between what's happening out here in California with this ridiculous Republican recall, where someone, accidentally with 10 to 20% of the vote is suddenly governor of the fifth largest economy in the world. It just doesn't feel like Republicans feel like they can win fairly, win elections anymore. So that's the point of all these voter suppression bills. It doesn't feel positive about where we are with voting rights bills as it regards the filibuster. What do you think?
I would say, as optimistic as I am about infrastructure and the Build Back Better Act, I cannot say my optimism extends to the Voting Rights Act. But it's not over yet. I mean, look, the good news is we're going to pass it today, pass it out of the House. So H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, will pass. We know we have at least 51 supporters in the Senate. But then it gets back to how many times have we had this discussion?
Yeah.
What do you do about the filibuster? Do you make a carve out? Do you just, as I would prefer, just get rid of the damn thing? That will be a matter for Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats as soon as they come back in a few weeks. I urge them to do whatever it takes to pass this before it's too late.
Yeah, I hear you.